Village of Wheeling regular meeting Tuesday, January 3rd is now called order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we do roll call, we hope that you all had a happy new year, a happy holiday season, and that you have a good year ahead with health and wealth and everything you desire to have in the coming year. Attendance? Roll call.
Trustee Hein?
Here.
Trustee Argyris?
Here.
Trustee Brady?
Here.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
Trustee Here? President Abiscato?
Here. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 5th.
So moved.
Motion made by Trustee Argyris,
Second.
second by Trustee Brady. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
President Abiscato?
Yes. Mr. Fondilis, any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam President.
Proclamations, congratulations, resolutions, and awards. National Stalking Awareness Month, January 2012. Stalking is a serious and pervasive crime that affects millions of Americans each year in communities throughout our country. Stalking can happen to anyone, and most victims are stalked by someone they know. Persistent stalking and harassment can lead to serious consequences for victims whose lives may be upended by fear and who may be forced to take extreme measures to protect themselves, changing jobs, relocating to a new home, or assuming a new identity. Although we have gained a better understanding of stalking and its prevalence since the passage of the Violence Against Women Act in 1994, this dangerous and criminal behavior is still often mischaracterized as harmless. Stalking can be a difficult crime to recognize, and the majority of survivors do not report stalking victimization to the police, in part because perpetrators use a variety of tactics to intimidate and harass their victims. Stalking affects too many Americans to remain a hidden crime, and a strong stand is required in order to both support victims and hold perpetrators accountable. We must work together to educate the public about the potentially deadly nature of stalking, to encourage victims to seek help, to inform criminal justice professionals about the intersection of stalking and other dangerous crimes, and to support law enforcement in their efforts. National Stalking Awareness Month, January 2012, provides an opportunity for all to learn to recognize the signs of stalking, acknowledge stalking as a serious crime, provide encouragement to victims to speak out, and resolve to provide communities that are secure and supportive for victims and survivors. Judy Abiscato, President of the Village of Wheeling, do hereby proclaim January 2012 as National Stalking Awareness Month in the Village of Wheeling and encourage our residents to learn to recognize the signs of stalking, resolve to support victims and survivors, and urge those impacted not to be afraid to speak out or ask for help.
Thank you.
Martin Luther King Day, Day of Service, January 16, 2012. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equality, social justice, and opportunity for all, and challenged all Americans to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. Dr. King's teachings can continue to guide and inspire us in addressing challenges in our communities. The King Holiday and Service Act, enacted in 1994, designated the King Holiday as a National Day of Volunteer Service and charged the Corporation for National and Community Services with leading this effort. Since 1994, millions of Americans have been inspired by the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to serve their neighbors and communities on the King Holiday. Serving on the King Holiday is an appropriate way to honor Dr. King, meet local and national needs, bring our citizens together, and strengthen our communities and nation. The King Day of Service is the only federal holiday commemorated as a National Day of Service and offers an opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities on the holiday and make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year. King Day of Service projects are being organized by a wide range of nonprofits, private businesses, and other organizations across the nation. Citizens of Wheelings have an opportunity to participate in events throughout Northern Illinois on the King Day of Service, as well as to create and implement community service projects where they identify the need. Judy Avriscato, President of the Village of Wheeling, proclaimed the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday as a day of service in Wheeling and call upon the people of Wheeling to pay tribute to the life and works of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. through participation in community service projects on Martin Luther King Day and throughout the year.
Thank you. We have any citizens' concerns?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. No staff reports? No consent agenda? No old business, new business?
Item 13, new business. All listed items have for discussion and possible action. 13A, ordinance amending Title 14, Chapter 4.36, Section 4.36.020 of the Wheeling Municipal Code and creating Title 2, Chapter 2.57 regarding foreign fire insurance taxes and the Foreign Fire Insurance Board.
Mr. Fundalis.
Thank you, Madam President. The ordinance before you this evening was written in accordance with the state statute regarding the creation of a board for foreign fire insurance taxes. And we have received a notification from some employees that they would like to have some additional discussion on the topic, and we would like to grant that request. Therefore, we ask that this item be tabled this evening.
So move.
Motion made by Trustee Adjura, second by Trustee Here. Roll call, please.
Trustee Heine?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
President Avriscato?
Yes.
Item 13B, ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 4.40, Section 4.40.010, and Title 4, Chapter 4.52, Section 4.52.020, and Title 4, Chapter 4.64, Section 4.64.010 of the Wheeling Municipal Code regarding soliciting in the streets.
Have any questions? Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we table this for some additional discussion. I think there's several things that we need to iron out that might or might not be. I don't know what the legality is of this thing, the wording. I had a little trouble understanding some of the wording as far as what it really means about solicitations. Can we ban somebody from out of the community from banning in our streets?
Mr. Fundalis has some information.
Thank you. I'd just like to kind of start from the beginning. The idea of tag days and recreating the ordinance as it exists came up at a board meeting several months ago. And staff was charged with looking at the ordinance and seeing if there's anything we could do or anything we should do in order to address some concerns as far as tag days as they are specifically executed at the street level. So to be clear, this ordinance change, if approved as written, would only deal with the prohibition on tag days in the streets. It would not prohibit tag days, as I think there has been some talk over whether that was the intent of this ordinance. It would only eliminate tag days from occurring in the streets. There are a number of reasons that this came up and is written as presented, one of those being perhaps the most important, safety concerns for those participants that are doing these tag days at our intersections. After speaking with the police chief and the fire chief, they both concurred that the easiest thing to do would be to ban tag days at the street level. Originally, there had been some discussion about perhaps eliminating the ability for any organization outside the village of Wheeling to come in and perform these tag days. And after looking at it, we realized that there were certain legal, as Trustee Brady, you had said, certain legal considerations that might come up if we were to put in a restriction where only those with a permanent Wheeling address were able to do street level tag days. And again, this came up at a board level several months ago because there were an increasing amount of requests for permits for tag days, and there comes an enforcement concern with knowing who has and who has not received the appropriate approval from the village board when it comes time to seeing who's out on the street and whether those people are permitted or not. And that's why the original request came through as, well, perhaps we could control that a little better by just saying they have to be a local entity, and that, again, is addressed through some legal concerns for our ability to do that. And that's why when staff wrote this ordinance, it was written to simply consider the safety issue that comes with anyone standing and soliciting at intersections, especially major intersections, and we thought that perhaps we could address those concerns about enforcement, combine that with our safety concerns, and bring this to you in this form. Certainly, if the board has any other concerns, we can amend this ordinance. This is a suggestion that we thought was the easiest and best way to proceed. We can amend as necessary if the board desires. I think the easiest thing to do is consider it as is, or simply not pass it at all and leave our ordinance as it is currently written. But that's just staff's opinion, and obviously we can discuss this in any detail you'd like.
Well, I would like to, I'm not against the ordinance per se, because there are intersections here in the community that are dangerous. They've gotten too big to do solicitations, but there are others that would probably be workable. But nevertheless, then how do you control that? And I'm wondering, because of I wish we would have done a little bit of a workshop before we went ahead and wrote it, because I think there's one other thing we have to add to this to control. We have certain organizations, and I don't know their name, but they seem like they're on the street corner every weekend, soliciting, more than several times a year. You see them time after time after time, and they like to be on the fringes of the communities where maybe the police won't bother them or don't know what community they're in. And I think we have to look into this ordinance, and maybe there's something in the ordinance already. How many times do we let somebody apply for an application to solicit a year?
Well, they can apply as often as they want. We just double-checked the ordinance as it stands, and there is no limit currently.
Maybe we ought to put a limit twice a year.
Well, and perhaps that would be something that we can do if the board desires. That is easily attainable versus trying to do something with a local wheeling address and censoring the.
Could I add something?
Mr.
President? Trustee Brady, as this is drafted and for the remaining board, this basically prohibits any solicitation in the street. And just like you were talking about it, and it's and when we do a regulation like that, we have to make sure that it's within the parameters of the First Amendment. Now, if we get into specifying different groups, we could run afoul of the First Amendment. That's why it's a blanket prohibition. Now, with that said, there are certainly other things that we could look into as far as designate certain intersections and so forth, that it be prohibited here, but you know, it could be, you know, at these designated intersections. That's certainly something I think we could put together. I think we need the staff input on, you know, what those intersections with the help of the police department would
we be within our rights to limit how many times they could solicit during the year?
I think we could do some type of reasonable limitation, but before we come down with it, we'll make sure on exactly, you know, how much we can.
I don't know
big kind of limitation.
Too many organizations that only do it once a year, and we'd be pretty generous giving them twice a year, you know. So I don't know. I don't know if we can do this tonight, or should we put it on a workshop agenda, or whatever you guys want to do?
Well, we can certainly rewrite the ordinance. I think I would ask the President, the easiest way to do this is to ask the board whether they're willing in any capacity to allow solicitation on streets. If the answer to that question is yes, then we can move on to perhaps limiting the number of times any one organization can apply for a permit within a given year. If the answer is no, then that makes things a little easier. And again, as written, all this does is ask those agencies to seek permission from private businesses such as Target, Walmart. They would do their tag days at those locations. So perhaps if if the president would allow a consensus for whether or not the board feels that tag day collections on streets is acceptable. If yes, then we can move on to recreating this ordinance a little.
You find like the AMVETs, just as an example, they always go to the business and they come in with a letter. The Knights of Columbus have done that, if they can solicit outside the businesses. A majority of the businesses do that. I mean, majority of the taggers do that when they want to solicit.
Question.
Yes, Trustee Vogel.
I guess not to be, I'll ask it direct. Attorney Wargo, you said we could be following a fall of the First Amendment. That kind of left that open. Are we or aren't we, I guess, is what?
I said anytime you adopt regulations, Trustee Vogel, in regulating these types of issues, there's the First Amendment considerations
Okay,
that
well,
you have to take into account.
What, I mean,
And
what if,
well, specifically, if we did designate that only certain groups, that only in-town groups could use it, yeah, I think that would violate the First Amendment.
okay, what happens if we pass this and someone comes and says you're violating the First Amendment? What do? We just let them in then? Because let me put it to you this way. Buffalo Grove will not let Wheeling Knights of Columbus go to the corners of Buffalo Grove and Dundee Road that are within the Buffalo Grove city limits. We can do the two corners that are Wheeling, but we cannot do the Buffalo Grove corners.
I don't specifically know what Buffalo Grove's
So
ordinance.
how are they getting away with that? Or are they just taking a chance?
They may have a prohibition against any tag days throughout the community.
No,
I don't know if that's the
because
case.
the Knights of Columbus from Buffalo Grove get the other two corners of the four.
I think that's a problem, Trustee Vogel. Now,
Okay.
have they been sued on it? Probably not.
And Arlington Heights, we cannot go into Arlington Heights either, they told us. So I guess, what I'm saying is how strong do we feel that we're going to be against the First Amendment? I mean, it seems like other municipalities are doing it. Bob, are you familiar with what their rule is over there?
Not exactly how
Okay.
they are able to pick and choose.
Are you familiar with how they enforce it?
Well, yeah, you've got to have a permit, and that permit's issued.
Okay, but should the officers on the street stop people that are, and ask them, or do
When a
they?
complaint comes in, the officer responds, and obviously if you don't have a permit, you can't be soliciting.
Okay, only based on complaints, they don't go out of their way?
They can spot check them too, so.
Do they? Okay. Yeah, it just seems like we're prohibiting our own citizens from being out there and doing charitable works, and it's getting to be to the point where like we're controlling things that maybe we ought to just let it roll. So I'm against prohibiting it entirely.
Trustee Heim.
Matter of clarification, did Trustee Brady have a motion on the floor to table?
No, he was going to, and then he wasn't to
withdrew the
make the
motion?
motion. There was no motion,
There was no motion.
no.
Thank you.
So Trustee Brady, now that we've had this discussion, did you want to carry a
Well,
motion? Did you want a motion made?
I would like to make a motion, we table this until, for further discussion.
A second motion.
Motion made by Trustee Brady, second by Trustee Heim to table the soliciting of the streets.
Point of order, Madam President.
Yes,
I'm sorry. The village manager asked for a consensus only to give us the opportunity, if we want to continue to do this prohibition or prohibit, or not do it. Otherwise, what are you going to come back and discuss? Either we kill the ordinance that's before us and they go back to the drawing board and we have a workshop.
well, that's what Trustee Brady wants. That's why he wants to,
But then we got an
Table it.
ordinance that doesn't mean anything. This should just die if nobody's in favor of it. And then they have that workshop.
well, we're
Or we
asking,
can discuss it right now.
You have a motion on the floor.
Trustee Brady has asked the second, so The motion is to table, so we'll have a roll call.
Trustee Heim?
I move to table. Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
No.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
No.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Trustee Here?
Yes.
President Everscott?
No.
Table 4-3.
So the motion is, it is tabled for discussion
So I guess I'll bring that back as a workshop item?
as a workshop.
Okay.
I don't know what for.
When are you going to squeeze that in?
Item 13C, resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Wheeling and the Village of Buffalo Grove related to the installation and ongoing operation and maintenance of the Dundee Road shared use bike path and related bike pedestrian improvements.
Mr. Fundelis.
Thank you, Madam President. Before you, and I believe soon to appear on the screen, is an illustration of the project that is before you this evening. We have been working with the Village of Buffalo Grove on an IGA in order to complete a section of bike path just west of Huntington Lane, just east of Huntington Lane. As described, this is a grant project that would not exceed a Village of Wheeling cost of just over $24,000. Should the project exceed that amount of money, we would come back to you for additional approval. We do not expect that that would be the case. This would complete a rather lengthy section of bike path through the Village of Buffalo Grove. This is an extension of one of their projects that would solidify between the east and west portions of their existing bike path.
Mr. Fundelis, it didn't have anything to do with the bike path many, many years ago when
No,
they
ma'am.
were collecting, and then we refunded them. Had to get back the money.
Madam President.
Trustee Brady.
Thank you.
Where's it go?
Reading this thing over several times, I understand there's a grant that Buffalo Grove is going to be using to pay for 80% of this work.
Yes.
And then we pay for 20% of it, or the two communities, or we do, I don't know. Who holds that grant? Buffalo Grove?
Yes,
Why don't we hold it?
it's their project. We have a very small percentage of their total project cost.
Is there any contingencies in there for cost overruns? And who's going to be responsible for them?
Well, that's why this is written in an amount not to exceed the $24,767. So should there be any additional costs, it would come back to you for approval if we could not come to some amenable conclusion.
You mean we would be responsible for anything, for extras on this? I mean, if they should run into something and the cost goes up, you're saying we have to pay for it?
Only by your approval.
And if we don't approve it? I'm looking at the plans. How many trees are we going to lose there? And I don't see any landscape plans replacing any of these trees that are being taken out.
Tony, would you like to have Tim come up and answer some of those specific questions?
The agreement, in the agreement, we have the right to pull out of it. If the number exceeds the 24,767 as agreed to in the document, and they come back and say, well, now it's 35, if we don't want to pay the 35, we can pull out.
Okay, well, that's
I mean, it's in the agreement.
good. Good. What about trees? What are we going to do about all these trees we're taking out? Some of them are substantial size.
I don't think about the trees. Is Tim? If you look on page 2 of the intergovernmental agreement, says shall not exceed 24,767. Wheeling reserves the right to terminate the participation without additional costs to Wheeling.
The agreement is established as contingent on Buffalo Grove's approval. So I would suggest that that we address that landscaping matter before we approve it.
Yeah, it would. You know, I mean, it looks nice there now because it's tree lined. It isn't going to be tree lined when they get done, and that's in front of Wheeling's, some of Wheeling's properties there. You know, and then one other last thing is some of what Judy asked. Is this part of the overall bike path program that just is giving us the money to come from Milwaukee to the tollway? Is that all part of the same program?
No.
No?
No.
Where's this bike path going?
This primarily is in Buffalo Grove's section of Dundee Road.
Yes.
I think if you look at the plan, it starts around Arlington Heights Road, maybe a little bit west of there, and comes all the way to this area of
It comes into Wheeling.
Wheeling. Correct.
And that's where it's going to die, the way we're getting property for a bike path. We're not, you know, we're supposed to be grabbing additional property when developers come in. We haven't done it yet. So we're not going to have any room for a bike path. You know, so all of this is going to be for nothing.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, we are getting as much property as we can. If you're talking specific about property that abuts Dundee Road, obviously there hasn't been any development there, and we have been working to try and get wherever we can, because of where the property lines lie. It becomes very difficult on the north side of Dundee Road. But we have extensive bike paths throughout town that can connect to this through other means. It doesn't have to be just along Dundee Road. And this does help to serve that purpose. This isn't a road to nowhere.
Well, yeah, but now we're going to have one that's going to cross over into Northbrook. You know, it would be ideal if we could go along, keep it going along the north side of Dundee Road, but we had a project across the street from St. Joseph's that we did not, you know, get an easement from, and it was like, and we're going to lose sidewalk, we're going to lose parkway, we're going to lose everything to get it to squeeze in there because the guy didn't want to give us 17 feet. You know, and what are we going to do when the state, one of these days, the state's going to come and want to finish widening Dundee Road? We aren't going to have any room for them, any properties for them. You know how long it took us to accumulate the property on Milwaukee Avenue for the state to come through? We worked on that for years. Everybody, that was mandatory. Everybody that came before the Plan Commission and the Village Board was asked to donate property. You know, and we got to get hot on that, guys. We got to get hot on that because it's going to happen. You know, it's right now, Dundee Road is becoming almost a nightmare to drive because you come from 2 narrow lanes to 2 wide lanes and back to narrow lanes. You know, they did this stretch over here, the state did, made it nice, 12-foot lanes, and you go back to 4.5 and 9-foot lanes. You know, we got to get Dundee Road done. That being said, I'm not against this. It's just that I just want to make sure that we're covered. And if we have the right to back out of this deal, if the costs are overrun or whatever the reasons are, then fine. But we got to start thinking about our section of this Dundee Road. Thank you.
Trustee Link.
Thank you. Well, I'm pretty familiar with this because I walked this several times. And, I mean, to the east of Arlington Club Commons, it's 8 foot, then it goes down to our 3 feet. And then just the other side of the bank, it goes back to 8 feet again. So I see what they want to do. But that said, in front of Arlington Club Commons, there is no room. The parking lot is raised and it's slightly bermed. So they'd be going towards the parkway. And just like Trustee Brady said, there goes our trees. So something to really look for. And if we do go ahead with this, I'd like to explore it, definitely. Buffalo Grove there's a bus stop in front of the condos to the east, right in the middle of the sidewalk. So you have to walk into the grass to walk around the bus stop. So while they're doing this improvement, have them, let's add in that they move the bus stop back a little bit, move the pad back so there's at least some sidewalk to walk on, because it's right in the middle of it, in the blocks.
There's no room, though.
There's no room.
There's no room there.
Yeah.
There is some room.
It's tight.
Then they can add additional sidewalk to the front. But you're walking on the grass either way.
I know. I've done it.
So, thank you.
Do you have anything?
Just a couple of things.
Trustee Adjurs.
Thank you. You guys are going to be out there when they're replacing and removing these driveways, aren't you? To coordinate that these folks don't get hurt from that shopping center? Driveway removal and replacement.
Right.
The existing, are they moving them somewhere?
I'll replace the aprons.
Just the aprons on there. I just hate to see construction going in there and there's no access into any of this stuff over here too. But the one thing, after Huntington Plaza to the east, where's it go? Back to 5 feet again? I mean, why aren't they continuing to their property limits where the Grove condos are?
Pardon me?
Why aren't they continuing further east past the condos that's in the jurisdiction of Buffalo Grove?
Trustee Argyris.
Yeah.
It is currently 8 feet there, along their frontage, the condos.
Sidewalks?
Yes.
Yes.
It's awfully narrow there.
No, it is.
It goes all the way to their easternmost border.
Correct.
Some of those sidewalks are pretty bad though, Ray. The slopes and all that, and they... I don't know.
Excuse me, the ones in front of CVS
Yeah.
are terrible because
Horrible.
they added a 5-foot section or a 3-foot section onto their 5-foot
Right,
walks.
right.
So those are all split and in terrible shape. But
Regarding the old bike path program back in the early 90s, we finally collected from them, didn't we? Remember we settled for a dollar amount about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
lower.
Did we ever collect those monies?
Much lower.
Oh, a ton lower.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh, yeah, because I remember they didn't want to cooperate
No.
with us.
Trustee Argyris, Madam President,
Yes.
we did settle that case for, I think, like 40,000. I think we were looking for 77 or so.
Right. So we did collect.
40,000 compared to 77.
And it was a fight, too.
That's right. Took years.
Okay.
We have any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
so moved.
Motion made by trustee Lang,
Second.
second by trustee Adjuris. Roll call, please.
Trustee Heim?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Here?
I have to abstain. The Village of Buffalo Grove is my employer.
Really?
That's why I didn't say anything.
President Everscotta?
You know, I'm going to have to vote no because of the non-cooperation of Buffalo Grove in years past. And we have official communications.
Madam President, am I?
Trustee Brady,
Question came up from, actually, my daughter the other day. When a call went on 911 about something, reverse 911 about something, and she said, I never got it. And it dawned on her that she doesn't have a landline anymore. She gave up her landline and depends on her cell phone for her only means of communication. And she said, well, what should I do? And I didn't know what to tell her. And I'm wondering, you know, being that this is kind of the sign of the times, what does somebody do if they give up their landline and you know, in the Village of Wheeling, can they register? They have to change their number to the...
Sure. Our list allows cell phones to be a part of that communication. There's no distinction between a landline and a cell phone.
Maybe, if you could, maybe we should put a notice of that in the newsletter.
It's on our website, Trustee Brady.
Is it? Yeah,
You can register right on the website, right through our
But
website.
people don't realize that they have to do that.
We put it out a few times in a newsletter. We can do it again.
Yeah.
Can you put it online too? I mean,
It's online.
It's on the web, or the TV channel?
It has been in the past. We can do it
Put it on
again.
there again, I think.
Yeah, because I think that's important. Fortunately, this wasn't a real urgent message, but if it was, you would have missed it.
If I may ask, Trustee Brady, this was a Village of Wheeling reverse 911 call? Recently?
No,
Oh, okay. I got a little nervous there for a
no,
second.
it was on an old note.
Thank you.
Secondly, while we're on the subject of Dundee Road, I had a complaint from a lady about how dark it is driving down Dundee Road. You know, and I know we're counting on the lights that we get from the state or Edison or whoever it is to light the section. Just out of curiosity, the other day, I was driving and I counted the light heads that are hanging on the telephone poles from Wolf to 83. There's 14 of them. And going through there at night, I think just a little bit more than half of them are working. That's a mile of road with about 6 or 7 road lights. It's a heavily traveled road and a heavily walked and biked piece of, section of road. What can we do? Will the state give us more lights? Do we have to buy lights and hang them on the wooden poles? How does that work to get more lighting out there for now? Anybody?
We've attempted to deal with the state for many years, and that, in fact, there is a plan to light Dundee Road. Tony, you can fill in the blanks here. And that plan has been shelved for many years due to cost and the eventual widening of Dundee Road and then the requirement for easements in order to do it. Am I missing anything?
It's easements. It's also photometrics for IDOT. Now, we do have lights on some of those utility poles along that roadway, and when those are out, we do notify ComEd. Not very fast in coming out and repairing them. We have requested additional lights before, and we've gotten them on some poles. I don't know what the criteria would be with IDOT, but I'm sure that ComEd probably would have an objection. As long as we're paying the freight, we're paying the electric on it, they'll hang a light just about anywhere that I know of. So we could ask ComEd that we could get some more lights on some poles out here in Dundee. Now, whether or not IDOT's going to say yay or nay, I have no idea.
No, IDOT is against lighting the street, or?
There's a criteria, the photometrics, and you have to meet a certain criteria. Like when we did Milwaukee Avenue, first part, phase 1, when Milwaukee Avenue was widened, those poles were 30-footers, and they were spaced so many feet apart. When we went and did phase 2 and went south to Burnside, I believe it's Burnside down there, we had designed it the same way as phase 1. And when it went to IDOT, they changed it and said, no, our photometrics has changed, and we had to put a higher pole, and they had to be closer together. So, it goes down state to their section for review. And
Right now, the only thing we've got are those telephone poles, however high they are. There's about 4 times as many of them as we got lights hanging out there, certainly enough of them to hang a few lights. I don't know what is in charges. Could you look into that and see what it costs to put up, more of them so that we can at least, have a little bit of light along the way? And then the last thing is just a question. So, I just want to see this thing die. Where are we at with the bidding on the southwest corner of Milwaukee and Dundee?
Mr. Janik?
Relative to the bids for the construction?
Yeah.
Tony, you want to talk?
I believe there's was submitted to 4 contractors. One of them wished not to bid, and we were in the process. There was some things lacking on the plans. I believe there was underground sprinklers that may have been lacking and some other incidentals, and those are being, I believe, redone and be resubmitted to the contractors so we can get a spring start on it.
Yeah, I'd like to, make sure it would be nice to have an early spring start to get it in and cleaned up before the planting season.
The schedule is to have the contracts approved and construction to begin in the spring.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you. Other than Happy New Year, everybody.
And to you. Trustee Juris?
Just real quick, Tony, the study that you did along Dundee Road, how long ago was that?
Which study?
With the lights that you were just talking about. Photometrics
We've done
and all
that
this stuff.
study.
How old is it?
It's not that long ago that we did it when we were doing the intersection out here. We were going to do all lighting along Dundee Road up to the track. From Wolf Road to the track.
Was that prior to the
We were
village
going
hall?
to tie that in with the Wolf Road job because there was lighting going on Wolf Road, and then we were going to match that lighting standard and carry it west along Dundee Road. But ComEd is requiring that they have a 10-foot exclusive easement for their wiring, not a joint easement for utilities, which is creating a problem with some of the landowners.
Where are we on these easements that we've been talking about for years?
Still
I mean,
trying to
is
get
there a
dedication.
master list? You got this and we're still missing this? I mean,
Still trying to get dedication across the street by the post office.
well, I understand for the signalization, but other easements that we've been talking about on the north side of Dundee Road, where are we on this stuff? Can we get a report on that in the near future, please? Because you know what, the easement issue has been an easement issue for many, many years here. And it hinders us for doing things that we need to do here. If you look at the municipality complex here, and you go to other municipalities, by far, we must be the darkest street around a village municipality than any other community around us. If you think about it, drive through Buffalo Grove, go to Addison, go to Des Plaines, and you look at streets that are literally lit up. We have a stretch here, a good mile stretch here along Dundee Road. It's dark. It is very, very dark. And you have a lot of activity here with the church, with the post office, with the fire and police department, with us here, with this park district here. There's so much going on here, and I can't believe photometrics dictates to IDOT saying that we don't warrant it when we have traffic here. We have activity here. We have synergy.
I didn't say that we didn't warrant it.
Well,
It's the design.
well, I understand that. Then we need to look maybe at a different design because it's dark, Tony. I don't have to tell you. You've lived here all your life.
Yours, I completely agree with you.
But the bottom line is everything west of McDonald's is dark. I drove home at 10:30 at night from work the other night, and it was raining. And I'm telling you, there are people jaywalking by McDonald's, and you can't see them. And it's only a God's mystery that they don't get hit there more often. It's dangerous because it's dark. So let's make that a priority if we can, Manager Svandelis, and see what options are out there and see if we can get some help from IDOT. You know, they go to the airport and, you know, we have this 11th hour rush to spend IDOT money because if we don't spend it, we lose it. Well, maybe there's something out there. I don't know, Tone. You know the folks down there better than any of us, but, you know, it's an election year. Maybe we need to get a hold of a couple of the reps and see if they can help us there to give us some assistance. I mean, Buffalo Grove's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for a bike path that ends to nowhere, and we're contributing to it. And that's coming from different agencies, I understand, and this congestion, quality air thing and stuff like that. But there's got to be a program out there that we can maybe get some dollars to help us do that. We need to light up Dundee Road. That's the bottom line. You got residents, you got businesses, you have activity, you have synergy here like I talked about. So, and on the flip side, if I can continue on my 2 seconds here, you know, we got a memo from Manager Svandelis, which I think is great news, and I don't know if, John, were you going to mention anything about that Lake Cook Road Corridor project or anything else that we had talked about a while back, and I understand funding is available and we've been granted that funding?
I would actually prefer not at this point. That was more for you guys. It was just an update.
It's good news.
The project is still years away.
Yeah, but it's good news that they recognize the project.
I think what might be easier is I'll prepare a slide so that everyone can see exactly what we're talking about, and that way there's a reference. Otherwise, it gets a little confusing with the different arterials that tie into it.
So that's good.
So I will do that for the next meeting.
Good. Thanks.
Approval of the bills of December 15th through December 28th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by trustee Vogel,
Second?
second by trustee Here. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
President Avascado?
Yes. No executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion made by trustee Here,
Second.
second by trustee Lang. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
President Avascado?
Yes.